Hey, it's Ven. Today I'm going to be testing Mozilla Servo. Servo is a complete rewrite of Firefox written in Rust. It should be more capable of 64-bit concurrency. Now note that this is alpha version, and so we expect that there's going to be many problems. But let's see how far they've gotten. Right now it's January 25th, 2017. I'll be testing on a Windows gaming machine with 16 gigabytes RAM, Intel Core i5 processor, and a GeForce GTX 960 graphics card. I'll be having a task manager at the bottom at all times for you to be able to tell the memory and CPU. I'll be having Firefox and Servo side by side so you can compare. This is the demo home screen provided by Servo. Notice the sides of these boxes are not drawn fully, and the drawing of the images is not as smooth. Notice also memory is pretty similar between the two of them so far, Servo being slightly less. So we're going to try the demo first. Servo is outperforming Firefox very well, and Servo is able to take more than just one CPU. It's using two CPUs, and as a result being able to present these presentation much better. While Servo is taking just 200 megabytes, Firefox is going over 600. Some more functions here. Servo is able to show you a list of tabs on the side. Notice that Firefox has two tabs open. However, in Servo we only have one tab. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out the tab in Firefox and watch how the memory goes down and see if the same thing happens with Servo. It looks like this small box here will do it. But it looks like Servo is still taking up memory. Here I am, and Servo is still taking up CPU. Oh, look, it looks like it's gone. So we're back at an even playing field. Now let's try the next demo. More. They seem to be performing the same way between the two of these. The CPU in Servo is slightly higher. But otherwise it looks more or less the same. Potentially Servo has a higher frame rate. Servo is displaying the correct character set while Firefox is not. Going back, notice that Servo is still taking up the CPU. I'm gonna wait for it to finish. Looks like this is taking a little bit too long. I might have to close out Servo. Alright, closed it out and starting a new session. And let's try a new demo. Spheres. Here obviously Servo is outperforming Firefox. And once again, it's capable of using more than just one CPU. Also note that Firefox seems to be going up in memory. Time to try another demo. Firefox seemed to freeze there for a second, but now both of them look good. In Servo, the ad appeared. For me, the ad didn't appear. Let me see. It doesn't look like my ad block is doing anything. So Servo is definitely outperforming in terms of the FPS number. And this is regardless of the mouse cursor position. The FPS number continues to be much higher for Servo. And Servo is able to use more of the CPU. Alright, going back. Let's try out a regular website, DuckDuckGo. It seems to appear the same way. and the CSS worked for the mouse. Trying out a sample search. The font is off, and I know they're currently working on that, but otherwise this looks the same. You can't see it on the screen, but there are two servos here. There's one on top and one below. So for some reason, even look, I closed the window and there's still a servo instance. I have to manually close that process. All right, let's try the next one, GitHub. And GitHub looks pretty similar. Note the scrolling is much more smooth in Firefox. Here there's no scroll bar either. Well, here I can use one. And I can't use a page up or page down or the home or end key, arrow keys either. I can only depend on the scrolling. On the top banner is missing. Starting fresh. Notice the character key is not recognized for Chinese or Japanese. Otherwise, it looks pretty similar. There are a few things missing, but otherwise it looks good. Here I was able to successfully search for Mozilla. I'm going to try typing it in here. I keep on running into this issue. While I type, the menu keeps on getting in the way. Either it doesn't type in a character or it types too many of the character. It looks pretty similar, legible. Servo seems to be taking up the same amount of memory as Firefox. Notice the image is cut off a little bit there, but otherwise it seems okay. Let me just scroll down to the bottom. Very legible. This browser can be used to read Wikipedia without too much of an issue. Testing out the simple JavaScript seems to work. Switching gears, let's try out some standardized online testing. Starting with HTML5 Test. In Firefox, we got 461 out of 555 points, and in Servo we have 251. They are pretty similar except for in parsing rules, video, and audio. I'm unable to scroll down in Servo for some reason. The scrolling just doesn't work, so we can't look at what's below here. Next, I will try the infamous acid tests. They kinda look the same, except for the font being smushed. Starting with acid number 1. In both browsers, they kinda look the same. The main difference here is that the form objects aren't visible, but otherwise everything else seems to appear in the correct location. Starting out with acid 2, the home screen doesn't look that great in comparison. The smiley face is pretty similar. The main thing missing is the eyes, and the nose doesn't change color on Hoover. Otherwise, Hello World and the smiley face are more or less there. Next, acid 3. In Firefox, we got 99%, which is normal and expected for Firefox 50. Now let's try out Servo. Got up to 49 and it looks like it crashed. That is the screen that you get when it fails. I no longer can click anywhere. It looks like I'm forced to close this. So there you have it, folks. That's what happens when you run into a problem in Servo. Let me try out javatester.org. Java version 1.5, Firefox version 50. Let's see what Servo says. Same thing, JavaScript version 1.5. It identifies itself as Firefox version 37. The user agent is slightly different. It identifies itself as Mozilla 5, but in Firefox it says Gecko. In Servo it says Servo, but it still at the end pads on Firefox 37. Next, I just finished a run of Jetstream in Firefox, and I'll try the same thing in Servo. Alright, let me start the test. And it looks like we can't run the test. Some kind of a JavaScript error. It says undefined. And last attempt, let me try Peacekeeper. Looks like it was able to start in both browsers. It's not entirely obvious which browser is performing faster. You can see Servo is using more CPU though. So far, they both look pretty good, and they both seem to work at around the same speed. Oh, looks like Servo crashed. Alright folks, that's all for my testing. See you next time.